Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the last session of day 2 of our EOSC Future Open Days. Yesterday, we covered mainly EOSC for researchers, looking at how researchers can use EOSC and how they're helping to build and perfect EOSC. Today, we had more varied topics. We first had a discussion about the EOSC platform for providers. Then in the previous session, we discussed the EOSC DIH business pilots. And now we're on to the final topic of the day, which is the EOSC Observatory. Here to discuss who is observing whom and what for is my colleague, Gareth O'Neill, who's a principal consultant on Open Science at Technopolis Group, and Natalia Manola, who is the CEO of Open Air. They're going to tell you more about how this project is helping monitor for key stakeholders, open science and EOSC. So before I hand over to Gareth, there's one thing I want to talk you through, which is how we're going to collect questions. Rather than doing that in the chat where we'll lose them immediately, we'll do that via Slido, and here's how you can join there. So you can either type in the very long link or just go to slido.com and use the code on the screen, or you can scan the QR code. I'm going to stop showing the screen in a few seconds. So if you're not quick enough, what you can also do is have a look at the chat, where we've posted the login information for you already. So that's all from me. You'll be hearing them from me for the questions. And for now, I'm handing over to Gareth. So good luck, Gareth.
Thanks, Catherine. I check first, you can hear me okay?
Perfect.
Okay, and let's see if this presentation works. Can you see this okay?
Yeah, all good.
I assume that's a yes. Perfect. Okay, so welcome everybody to this last session, I think, for today on the EOSC Observatory from EOSC Future. It'll be myself, Gareth O'Neill, so I'm leading the work package on policy and strategy in EOSC Future, and Natalia Manola from Open Air, who's working on the technical implementation of this EOSC Observatory. And just to note that there's quite a lot of people working on this, so I see some of them in the call, so they may jump in to answer some questions later on as we go through. And just note while I'm talking, if you have any burning questions, then please shout them out in the Slido, and we'll address them as we go, because some of the topics that we'll discuss are a little bit complex, so I'm happy to go through it as we're there. Very quick background for those of you who don't know what we're doing here. EOSC Future, this is a project funded under the EOSC 03 2020 call under Horizon Europe, with the title of Integration and Consolidation of the Existing Pan-European Access Mechanism to Public Research Infrastructures and Commercial Services through the EOSC portal. Quite a mouthful and quite a lot of activities, as you'll see. The idea here is basically to integrate, consolidate, and connect all the existing e-infrastructures, research communities, and the initiatives in open science, and in so doing to develop the portal, the EOSC Core, EOSC Exchange specifically, to implement the Open Science Cloud, so the European Open Science Cloud, EOSC. One of the core tenets of this project is that we take a user-driven approach, that we pull the users in at an early stage and in the development and design stage, so that this is fit for purpose for their use when it's rolled out. Now, to give you a sketch of the alignment that we are doing in EOSC Future, if you look at the image here, you'll see the different stakeholders that we're trying to align with. So we're aligning with key stakeholders like the EOSC Association. There's also several representatives I see in the call rooms today. We're aligning with the EOSC Steering Board. These are representatives of the member states. And just for those of you who don't know, basically the EOSC partnership is an agreement between the EOSC Association and the European Commission, totaling about towards €1 billion over the full 7 + 3 years of Horizon Europe. And then in the EOSC Partnership Board, so governing the partnership, we have representatives from the EOSC Association, EOSC, and well, the European Commission, and then also the EOSC Steering Board, so representatives from the member states. Then aside from that, we have multiple existing projects that have been building EOSC and developing EOSC. We have the Infra EOSC 05 projects, and I'll come back to that in a moment. And we also have the Infra EOSC 07 projects, so the partner projects that are providing, let's say, the services for and into EOSC Future. And then on the left side there in the yellow boxes, you'll see that there are other strategic stakeholders that we're aligning with, such as HPC, Gaia-X, and the data spaces, which will be hooking up to EOSC. So this is just a sketch of the alignment that we're doing, and we're in discussion with all of these stakeholders on the different aspects of the project and the portal. Now, coming to the EOSC Observatory, this is basically a monitoring and policy intelligence tool to help, let's say, collect information and present information related to EOSC readiness of the member states and related to the activities and contributions of the EOSC partnership. So the idea is an interactive dashboard, let's say, to keep this simple, twofold. On the one hand, to help the EOSC steering board and to help the EOSC Association collect data, and I'll come back to that in a moment. And then on the other side, to present that to the public in an easy-to-use interactive online website or dashboard, if you will. So there's two sides to this. There's the back office, let's say, for the collection of the data and the selection of the data and the validation of the data. And then there is the front office, so the interface for the public who can look and see how EOSC is developing across the different layers, which I'll come back to. And a key tenet here is that we're supporting the activities of the EOSC Association and also the EOSC Steering Board, and by extension, thus the EOSC Partnership. Now, we're not doing this in a vacuum. We're basically building on work that's already been done from existing projects and initiatives. So we're building on the EOSC Executive Board, even more specifically on the working group landscape, which was looking at how to monitor EOSC readiness and had proposed, let's say, possible indicators to do that. This was then taken over by the EOSC 05 projects. So they had a specific task force of the projects called the Task Force Landscaping, who had taken the work from the EOSC Executive Board Working Group Landscape and taken that further. And they came forward with indicators for monitoring EOSC readiness. They also developed a prototype dashboard similar to what we want to do, which we will learn from. So we're taking over, let's say, the activities from this task force and taking the monitoring and the development of this interactive tool forward. So the bottom line here is that we're building a tool that can help collect the data, analyze and select the data, validate the data, and then present the data. Now I'm going to take time on this image that you see in front of you. This is, I guess, what we call internally the dashboard. What you'll notice that there's 4 layers. And this is not just the approach that we will take within the EOSC Observatory, so breaking this down across the layers, but in a way, this is sketching the actual landscape, the monitoring landscape for EOSC. So the different stakeholders that need to do the different types of monitoring. So starting at layer 1 in the very center in the yellow, we have a layer that's looking at indicators to monitor EOSC readiness. So this is related to the monitoring of EOSC readiness at member state associated country level, specifically under the EOSC steering board. And essentially, we are now working with the steering board on a survey to collect information from member states and associated countries on, let's say, on their open science policies and their EOSC readiness, specifically for now, looking at EOSC research, data management, and research infrastructures. So we're currently working on a survey form that will go out hopefully before Christmas to the member states associated countries. And this tool then will help collect that data and will help the representatives of the steering board look at that data, analyze that data, and validate that data moving forward. So that's that first layer to monitor, let's say, the EOSC readiness at country level. Then the second layer is for monitoring, in a way, the EOSC partnership. So this is to monitor the indicators in the monitoring framework for the EOSC partnership, which specifically falls under the EOSC Association, as let's say, an agreement in the Memorandum of Understanding between the Association and the European Commission in the context of the partnership. One of the requirements is that the EOSC Association monitors the different activities of its members. So the members of the association, the 150 plus members currently there, and they essentially need to collect all the different activities that link up to EOSC and then link that to the indicators to monitor the progress of the partnership over the duration of Horizon Europe. So at least at my last count, there was around 50 plus indicators across the different objectives, so linked to the different general, specific and operational objectives of the EOSC partnership, which you can find in the SRIA, the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda. And what this layer will essentially do is help the association generally, but help the members specifically to collect all the data to fill in, let's say, all their activities and then to link them to the different objectives and to link them also to the Horizon Europe work program. So that's layer 2, that's on the indicators for monitoring the EOSC partnership falling under the EOSC Association. Layer 3, which is separate, and this again falls under the EOSC Association, and this is the contributions to the EOSC ecosystem. Now, specifically here, starting off, these will be contributions, so activities from the members of the EOSC Association towards the EOSC partnership. The difference here with the second layer is that this is not being directly linked to the objectives of the partnership and in the monitoring framework and in the SRIA, but rather looking at the activities that are being done and linking them to categories of activities across all of the European partnerships under Horizon Europe, and also attributing a financial amount or estimation of those activities per organization. So essentially what you have is each of the members of the association, again in the context of the Memorandum of Understanding of the partnership, need to collect all of their different activities and contributions to the partnership. They need to, let's say, categorize those activities according to the template that the European Commission is using to break down the different types of activities, which can even be more subdivided into different types, possibly even subtypes, and then to assign a financial estimate or value to those activities, with the ultimate goal of being able to keep an overview, let's say, of all the activities that the members of the association have been doing, and the collective financial in-kind contributions to the partnership. And just to note, in the context of the EOSC partnership, so between the Commission and the Association, the Commission on the one hand agrees to finance 490 million euros worth of calls in the research infrastructures pillar in Horizon Europe, specifically under Destination 2 EOSC. And on the other side, the members of the Association agree basically to run activities to implement and develop EOSC within their organizations and countries, and to contribute financially, collectively, with these in-kind contributions to a minimum of 500 million euros, again, over the duration of Horizon Europe. So these first 3 layers that you see are interconnected, and we're aware of that. Many of the activities that could be happening at different levels may overlap. We can go into more detail perhaps a bit later on that. And the idea of this tool basically is to help collect that data, separate that data, check that data across levels, and then ultimately to present that data, and twofold: present that to the relevant stakeholders that need that information, such as the member states, the European Commission, the EOSC Association, the members of the EOSC Association, but also then externally to the public to see where we stand in the progress and implementation of EOSC under Horizon Europe. The fourth level is more general, and this is basically collecting the policies and strategies that are relevant for EOSC, that are being implemented across the different countries, and that we'll be collecting these policies and strategies from different key stakeholders and representatives, coming perhaps from the steering board, perhaps from the EOSC Association, but also perhaps from, as an example, the National Open Access Desks from OpenAir. So that's just a broad sketch of these different layers. I think we can go into more details, let's say, in the questions, and we're happy to do that. I'll check if there's any burning questions on any of this.
There's a quick question, Gareth. There's a yes/no question. There's whether the Memorandum of Understanding has been signed.
I check if there's a representative from the association in the call. I do see that Ilari was there, if they would like to comment on that. You're welcome to unmute your microphone, Ilari.
Thank you, Gareth. Yes, the Memorandum of Understanding is still in a draft stage, and we're hoping to sign a first version towards the end of the year.
And maybe just to add to that, because I think many people will have seen the SRIA, and in the SRIA there are, of course, the indicators and KPIs linked to the general, specific and operational objectives. But my understanding is that in the Memorandum of Understanding, the draft monitoring framework will be slightly extended, I think, with some more indicators. So there will be an increase in the number of indicators. And that will be, of course, linked to this second layer in the observatory.
Yes, it will be a work in progress. That's what's being discussed with the Commission, and we will work towards refining this to make it as simple as possible, especially as easy to monitor as possible in this regard.
Thanks, Hilaria.
Thank you.
If there's no further burning questions, then I think we can leave the discussion to the end, and I'll skip forward to Natalia. You can take over from here on the approach, Natalia, and the technical side of the observatory.
Okay, thank you, Gareth. So what Gareth has explained is the overall framework. Now it's about implementation time, and we have already started this. And this is a few facts about our methodological approach. So one of the key areas that we're working on is, as Gareth said, is with the EOSC strategic group, and also with the EOSC Association. And there is a lot of information, especially about policies, that is just known by people. So what we will be doing is, first of all, we will be at the bottom, if you see, there is going to be an automated data collection from trusted sources. Which are these trusted sources? And these trusted sources means, has a lot of connotations. So one of them is the EOSC portal that EOSC Future is building, and has a long history with the onboarding. So what is of interest there is to see how many services we can see as part of this EOSC ecosystem to be using EOSC resources. So this is going to be one area where we're going to have things by country or by a specific domain. The other is the Open Science Observatory, and this is something that we are building based on the open air research graph that Paolo described this morning. But what is of interest here, because we had an internal open air workshop on monitoring, is that many of our members and members of other networks, they're building national monitoring systems. So there is a discussion there starting about how we can share, we can agree on common indicators about open science, and also common methodological approach. So this is a work in parallel that we will be working on, but the idea here is that we are expecting and we are anticipating that many countries will be building their own open science monitoring systems, and we want to work with all of them. Then, so this is going to be this layer at the bottom is the automated data collection. Then we are discussing about collection and analysis data by representatives, because the questions is, there are many questions based on policy, infrastructure, and EOSC touches upon many layers. So we're touching about services, we're touching upon participation, we're touching upon open data. In a country or in an institution, usually the case is that there is not one person that has the whole knowledge of what's going on. Even if this organization or person comes from a mandated organization or from the EOSC working group. So this is going to be an effort where we collect and analyze data entered by many representatives, and then we are devising a scheme where this we're going to have representatives to have, a more how should I say it, a more central role, or a more managerial role, if you want, but they're going to be able to validate the data that we get from various sources and various representatives, and put this in the workflow. And then of course it's the sharing and presentation. So we're going to do analysis. We're going to do probably not comparisons, but we're going to be able to have enough analysis and graphical visualization that will tell us how things are going on. And in this, the tool, because what Gareth said is this policy intelligence tool, is that this is where we want to put some intelligence on this, on the analysis. And also, one of the key points here is that, how can we keep history of what's going on? So because progress is a very big thing here. Some countries we know have already started. Some countries are just starting or will start. And what we would like at the end of the day, in 7 years' time or in 5 years' time, what we would like to see, an alignment. So this policy intelligent tool, what we aspire to be is not a punishing or a tracking or a monitoring tool, but we want to see, to incentivize countries and institutions to move forward. So this is how it's going to be. And on this, you can see that we're touching upon all the layers, but what we are anticipating is that we're going to have different representatives from different members as the circles, the concentric central circles that Gareth explained. Next slide, Gareth. Now, the architecture, just to give you, an overview, because we are building it as a tool, as a service to serve EOSC for the longer period. So the architecture, the technical architecture is a bit of importance, because this is, it's not just something that EOSC Future is building and it's going to go after the end of the project, but we want it to be an accompanying tool for EOSC. So this will have, on one side, it's going to have a survey tool where we're going to have the different representatives logging in and giving us information. And then on the other side, we're going to have the Open Science Monitor that comes from as I said, OpenAIRE and EOSC portal. Hopefully that both of OpenAIRE and EOSC portal will work with the national initiatives. And then we're going to be building reporting, visualization, and aggregation and analysis. And on the analysis, I think this is where we need to work with the community, with the broader community, and especially at the national level. What type of indicators do we come up with? How can this data be translated to something that will incentivize the implementers? And this AI and user management is very important, and we're using, of course, the EOSC AI, because we expect that there will be many representatives, and at the end of the day, everyone should have their voice. And again, this should be structured and guided by EOSC Association and the steering group. Next slide, and the last slide, is what types of indicators. What I have put here is the type of indicators, because everyone is talking about readiness of EOSC. And the readiness of EOSC, hopefully EOSC will be ready in a few years. And then we should be talking about, talking about, readiness, implementation, uptake, and impact. So what the EOSC steering group has done is following a European Commission framework on how to assess the progress. So we will be starting measuring, if you want, the readiness from the policies. What are the strategies and policies that are under discussion, implemented, adopted in each country or in each institution. And then when we're talking about policy, we're talking about different kinds of coverage. So policy, for example, to open access publications, research data management, software, participation of the public, training, industry, training, infrastructures, etc. So this will be a questionnaire that will be hooking up all these initiatives, from strategies to policy and roadmaps. Then what we will try to capture is the practices. And the practices, in many cases, they include funding. So what are the open science practices? How many repositories does a country or institution have? What are the certification schemes for these repositories? What is the outputs, open access to publications and fair data sets? And hopefully in some of these questions or automated gathering, we will have questions about funding, and this will probably lead into a mutual learning exercise. So countries or institutions that are not so much advanced, they could probably learn from the others. And last but not least, this is about discussing impact and what is the impact of what we're doing, because we are, all of us, we're spending a lot of resources, and especially the member states and all the European countries, we're spending a lot of resources, and we need to see, what is the impact. So what is the uptake of science, not just open science, but of science due to open science? What is the uptake and what is the advancement of research because we have EOSC and because we have all this federation underneath? So these are the types of indicators we will be grouping by. And I think, Gareth, I will let you go back to this last implementation timeline, so you can explain it a bit.
Thanks, Natalia. And I see there's a comment from Peter Dorn in the chat, which we can get to in a moment. So this is the timeline that we're working on. It's slightly adjusted because we've been trying to align with the association and the steering board also to meet their own internal deadlines related to the service that they need to do. But in any case, we've done a landscape analysis, and we've been aligning with the association and the steering board on what exactly we should be monitoring. The next step is, of course, how to set that up in practice and implement that. We see then we are now basically in the development stage of the dashboard. We're running out some of the surveys, and we'll be testing them over the next few weeks. And in Q1 2022, we'll have our first, let's say, development stage of the dashboard. Real testing of the dashboard is expected to happen then in Q2 2022, and we're hoping to roll this out publicly in Q1 2023. So that's the rough timeline. Just noting that we are adjusting as we go to meet the needs of the association and the steering board. I think I will just come back to Peter Dorn's comments. I'll read that out because that is an issue that we have. And sorry, I'm muting myself. The comment relates specifically to the trusted data sources at the bottom of this image you see here in the approach. So Peter says that Natalia mentions trusted sources as the basis. However, this is easier said than done. Sources are never to be trusted, especially not if they get an official stamp as trusted. All sources with respect to open access, data, software, and other resources have certain deficiencies. Critical approach to the sources is necessary. There is a certain danger in the nice presentation of graphs and maps when the sources are not explicitly mentioned and their shortcomings are acknowledged. Peter, do you want to unmute yourself and just explain that or add to that?
Perhaps the most crucial aspect is, when is a source to be trusted? And that I see a certain danger if you work with a kind of a stamp of a trusted source, because that might lead to the situation where there is a kind of monopoly on the source, whereas there is often discussion about how to measure things. And this is certainly the case in different aspects of open science, open access, open data as well. Even what is a data unit, what is the unit of data that we are counting, stuff like that is more problematic than it might seem. That is.
May I try to respond? Okay, so I see all Peter. So okay, so this is. Okay, so may I try to respond to that? So I think this is one of the crucial things is what is a trusted source, and I think this is where EOSC we all need to work together to make trusted sources, and this is where we truly believe that where national infrastructures can come in place. For example, in today, Paolo mentioned the research. Portal in Finland, where they are aggregating content, a national quiz system where they're aggregating content from around. So this is probably the best way to go at the national level and see, how this can be aggregated at the national level, and then we can aggregate at the European level. What, for example, I will be speaking on behalf of OpenAir or for EOSC Future, is we know a few things, but we believe and we trust our members to know many more. So what we would like to do is to push for these national, I wouldn't say monitoring systems. I'm not sure, how we can name them, but perhaps CRIS systems. And then we all sit together and see what are the trusted sources, and what are the stamps. And coming from the publication world, for example, in the past many decades, for example, all the libraries have trusted Web of Science and Scopus. We have done analysis, for example, on Open Science and Scopus and Web of Science. Are they, the best sources? Probably not. There are better sources out there. So the challenge here, Peter, to all, is how can we work together, and how can EOSC be the vehicle so we can have trusted sources that we believe, that we know that they can have a room and a window of error, because anything that the data that we consider will have room for errors, but at least there will be very, very good indicators of where the progress is going. I mean, I don't know if I have answered to your question, but this is something that we need to work together.
Thank you, Natalia. I don't think that there is really a good or a bad answer here. The only thing is that it is good to that everybody is aware that we need to have this critical approach, and indeed both also in the countries, individual countries as well, because there it will probably start with aggregating information in each country. And also there the discussion will be needed. So it was more my point to raise the discussion than to get
excellent.
The only good answer.
Yeah, and I think the EOSC Association that that is watching this, the people from the EOSC Association, this is something that that we need to look into. Also, what is, and maybe this could be something for the next year, because at least from the OpenAir side, we propose that for the next year and then the next work program. The other thing that is of essence here is that in the EOSC Observatory, we're combining this qualitative approach where people will just come and see the results and say, okay, that doesn't seem like this is happening in my country. And also approaching it from a dual perspective, surveys plus automated data, and then we can see where especially the automated data is not being correct.
And Peter, maybe to break the process, let's say, down a bit more, to be clear on what we mean by data sources here and checking, but also to respond to Jos's comment on a similar concern: who will deal with contradicting information when collecting information comes from different sources. So if we break this down, what we will have is we will be taking from trusted data sources, I'll come back to that in a second, which should be feeding into the work of the different layers. So what I mean by that is we would like to be extracting data, for instance, from the OpenAir Open Science Observatory, right, which collects data on publications, data sets and code sets. We'd also like to be extracting from the portal itself, the EOS platform, and the regional thematic portals. So extracting relevant data there on data services, usage, and so forth, and then provide that to the representatives that need to be filling in these different surveys at the different layers. Now, if I come to the layers, that's where we get the let's say the manual filling in of data from the countries or from the members of the association, and also the validation of that data, which could take place in different steps by different people. So what you'll have is, at each different layer, you'll have representatives from, for instance, the steering board or from the EOSC Association members. They will be checking that data that comes in from these trusted data sources, using it where it's necessary, confirming or not confirming it. I doubt they'd be using everything there. And then what they will do is they will be responding to the questions in the surveys and the indicators that they have agreed for their own monitoring frameworks. And then that data will ultimately need to be validated, and then we'll need to decide what needs to be presented publicly. So that's just to separate out the process there and the different types of data. Coming back to Jos's question then, contradicting data in principle would happen during that selection phase and validation phase, Jos. So it's up to the representatives of the countries or of the members of the association to fill in the correct values, let's say, for the questions that are being asked there. And if, you know, the idea of this automated data collection is to help them fill in the survey as much as possible.
Yeah, if I can comment to that, I'm not exactly worried about, of course, contradicting information as such, but the way you collect information may result in different numbers, right? I mean, it's also kind of how do you assess information, and this has to stabilize somewhere, or has to be, I mean, judged somewhere in the middle, or you go back to the sources and try to make all the information interoperable, right? Which will not be possible. So therefore, I'm more worried about how to deal with information that comes from different sources, which is more or less similar, but cannot be compared because they have a different base of numbers or different normalizations, all of these things. So it's more a technical aspect, I guess, not a sociological or argumental thing.
Yeah, I mean, for the observatory, the core focus of the observatory is to provide a tool to help, let's say, collect the data needed for these different monitoring activities across the layers, and to help the representatives there, you know, use whatever data is out there, hoping that it's all trusted, which will need to be checked, and then to actually provide the correct validated data for their different layer, right? Be that the member state level or be that at the organization level. So the idea of the tool is to support that, let's say, but also the idea of the tool is that you have one place where these different monitoring layers are being tracked, and that, let's say, key individuals from, for instance, from the steering board or from the association or from the European Commission are able to look across levels, and then also to check, you know, what's being filled in across different levels. There will be overlaps, and to separate perhaps different double or even triple reporting or incorrect reporting of figures. So the idea of this tool, let's say, is almost twofold in that sense. It's to not just collect the data, present the data, but also to look across the different layers and try to align and coordinate, which is what we're doing now with the steering board and the association. I see Volcker has commented in the chat. I don't know if you want to unmute yourself, Volcker, and just add to that.
Yes, sorry. Yes, I mean, we actually work together in order to avoid this kind of conflicting information, right? So we set up a system which asks for policies and national funding, and then we have this part includes a certain set of questions, and this is then validated by the EOS steering board members, so by the ministries of research in different countries. The same applies for the EOS association, and we talk with each other so that we don't have the same question in there, so that we don't ask the same question twice. So this already avoids the duplication effort, and the system should be clever enough then that so if you ask a person, can you provide this information, then this person can assign other colleagues who might fill in this, but at the end it comes back to one person who has to validate this. So for each question in the different surveys, you will have a clear identification of who is going to validate that. So I think this should avoid conflicting information in the final process.
Katrine, I don't want to take your job. I check if you want to throw some of the questions at us. I see there's a couple of questions also in the Slido.
Well, you've taken my job, and so has Volcker, because he's already addressed the question that was posted on Slido, which is how you will avoid duplications. Maybe you can go into a bit more detail about any alignment efforts there might be between your efforts on the policy observatory and then a WP in EOSC Focus, monitoring officer in the EOSC association. And I think I see a raised hand there. Ilaria, maybe you want to take that question? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo Volker's comments, and indeed he did anticipate this question, and I just wanted to reinforce the message that a lot of effort is actually going into avoiding duplication of efforts, and not just on our side, but also on the side of the persons who will have to respond to the questionnaires. The questions are many, the questions are complex, the landscape is complex and needs indeed to be surveyed or inspected, so to speak, in its different aspects or layers. So I just wanted to ensure everybody that we are really seriously working to check what each of us or the respective bodies who are responsible for different aspects of this landscape, we're ensuring that we are we're sectioning this monitoring effort and we avoid duplication of efforts.
Maybe just to add to that practically, so as in representatives from EOSC Future, all the people involved in the observatory, and representatives from the EOSC Steering Board and the EOSC Association meet bi-weekly to keep aligned and to move forward with the deadlines that we have to make the tool and the surveys ready for use. Maybe to go a bit more detail into the different types of survey. I mean, we currently envision. I will ignore the fourth layer for the moment, which is more on the generic policies. But the key layers for now are layers 1 on the readiness, let's say the monitoring of readiness for the member states, layer 2, the monitoring of the indicators for the partnership, and layer 3, the monitoring of the in-kind contributions to the partnership. So at least for now, we envision 3, let's call them surveys to collect the data. Layer 1, then under the members of the EOSC Steering Board, the member states, associated countries. Layers 2 and 3 under the EOSC Association, specifically targeted at the members of the association. So we have these surveys. The surveys will most likely change over the years. Some questions may adjust or may be added or may drop out depending on the prioritization. For instance, we currently have 21 questions in the survey aimed at the member states, associated countries, that may be expanded in future. So we need to take that into account. For layer 2 on the indicators, there are of course many indicators for the association, so we may need to prioritize some of them starting off, but no doubt we'll then scale out and add more indicators as we go over time. And I think the same may also apply for layer 3 in the so-called additional activities plan, where we do have a template that we need to adhere to. I don't expect that to change too much, but I guess, Ilaria, that could change over time depending on the responses that come in and maybe the recategorization or retyping of examples.
Yes, that may be the case, and it's gonna be, as I was saying earlier, some work in progress also with the Commission on agreeing on what is absolutely relevant and ensure that we don't overdo, but that we do all that is necessary to have a mapping of what is happening and to be able to track the changes over time and see the evolution of this landscape.
Maybe just to respond to that comment on the different monitoring efforts. Yes, there have been many monitoring efforts, and that was one of our goals collectively, to try and align all of these monitoring efforts, to try and align the surveys and to collect all that data, in a more central space, so that it can be, we can look across those layers and present it also in a coherent manner to the public. But a further, not complication, but a further monitoring effort here is on the bigger monitoring of the implementation of the European Research Area. And I understand that open science will play a role in there. So a question for us would be at some point, how do the monitoring activities that we're looking at potentially feed into this bigger picture of the monitoring of the ERA? I don't want to put Thomas on the spot here, but if he wants to add to that, if he's in the call, feel free. I'm not sure if Thomas is here.
If Thomas is here, his name is not set to Thomas, so I'm going to assume
he must have skipped out. So I think that's just an open question for us on how this monitoring of open science across these different layers links up and feeds into the bigger monitoring of the ERA. I don't know if Volcker wants to say anything on that, but that's at least an open question looking forward for us trying to link it to the bigger framework of monitoring on science under Horizon Europe.
Anything you would like to add, Volker? If not, I see that there's no questions in no new questions on Slido. I think we spent a lot of time talking about pitfalls or possible pitfalls for the work that you're doing. Maybe let's end on a more positive note. I think it would be interesting to hear from you why you think that your work you're doing with the observatory or your approach to it is important. So I think give me your best sales pitch. Maybe Gareth, that seems like something for you.
Well, I think I get it from the two of us. But before I do that, I'll just quickly, I see Gergely had a question on the specifications of the dashboard. I'm not sure if we answered that. He's asking, are the specifications available for the dashboard? Natalia, do you want to take that one? Will the specifications of the dashboard at some point be opened up?
Yes, yes. In early, in the first quarter of 2022.
So the sales pitch, Natalia, you get a minute or two to prepare yours while I put mine out. But in any case,
the only thing that I can say is that EOSC, in order to to progress, we need this policy tool, and we will try to make it the best we can. Lots of people are involved, and lots of people are putting a lot of energy, and not from the implementation side, but from the member states. So they are putting monitoring, and they will be spending time to reply to the surveys from the opener side and the open science monitor, because I think this came, the most of the questions came from the trusted sources. Yes, there is a problem with this. We know, we are aware, and thank you for raising the discussion. But we are all on this together, and we should make it work. And we can make it work, if we work at the national, how the national monitoring systems, they are able to hook onto this. Transparency, because it's not just about the trusted data sources, it's also transparency on the methodologies we're using in order to get these numbers and graphs out, is out there, and will be more transparent as we go along. For me, there is only one way forward. It's just, we will not let the deficiencies block the way.
From my side, there are a lot of these monitoring activities already happening, and they must happen. And also from the public side, it's not always easy to track what's happening with the EOSC and where to find that information. So I think the key idea of this EOSC Observatory, the tool, is to have one place where the individuals, the representatives who need to collect the data and do the monitoring activities can go, be that the same people across layers or even different people, but at least they have one place that they know where to go. They have a tool that helps them select data or collect data already out there from the different portals or monitors, that they can use this tool to send out web forms to their own, let's say, groups, be that the member states or be that the members of the association, and that they can, use this tool then to look at that data, visualize it, analyze it, and select what's relevant, and then to present that data, first of all, I guess, internally across the different member states or across the members of the association, and then externally, ultimately, to present all of that in one place, collected for users, and that they also have, simple tools to deselect and filter out the information, to look at the different activities that are happening, for instance, in their country or in the different organizations, to find specific types of activities linked to EOSC, such as data stewards being implemented across Europe, and then also, to perhaps visualize that or extract data itself from the observatory for their own usage. So a kind of one-stop shop for all the key stakeholders involved to collect and to present data.
Yeah, so I'm remembering that there's a lot of buy-in across different partners. You're centralizing information to make it easier to use, and the process will be very transparent. So I think I quickly want to hand back to Volcker, because I think he had something to add, but we forgot. Hello.
No, you didn't forget anything. I just wanted to also put in my 5 cents here. I think it's a great way of advancing EOSC. It's not only about making sure that what is happening, it's also to motivate us to do better. And here, I mean, especially also the ministries. I mean, that's where your money comes from at the end. So we want to know how much are we putting in, how are we developing our policies, and it's of course comparing best practices across Europe. So you should see if your country puts in the effort they should put into EOSC, and this should motivate us to go further ahead. And the great aspect, which has been underlined already by Natalia and by Gareth, is that we all work together. Not only the association is in there and the EOSC Future, there are the ministries, there's the commission with DG RTD, DG Connect, and other actors. And at the end, we will have one system, and we will avoid this asking surveys left and right, and which are then difficult to compare and which we cannot put together, and will reduce the amount of work on the midterm for all of us.
Yeah, so that Natalia added to the chat that it's also about incentivizing, and yeah, it makes sense to me that if you're going to have something across Europe where you can see information from other countries and information about what your own country is doing is available, that there's an incentive there to, as Volcker said, invest in EOSC. I see that Jos has posted another comment to the chat as well, saying that it is important work also because it makes countries and organizations think about the relative importance of the informations and the sources of information collected. And that is a reason for agile development of EOSC. And I see, Ilaria, that you put your hand up. If you want to comment on that, please go ahead.
Yep, just as a final note, I would like to just remind ourselves this is one of the biggest development for Europe and globally, I would say. And so this is an enormous contribution to that development, this project, and the efforts of all of us are an enormous contribution to that development. And these two will only facilitate the observation, in fact, of what is happening. And as a lot of us have already noted, help us stay motivated and understand where the target line moves or where the horizon lies. So thank you very much for all your work.
That for me would be a nice note to end on, to congratulations to ourselves. But I don't know whether there's anything else that you would want to add, Gareth or Natalia?
No, not for me. Just if people are more interested, feel free to send me or Natalia an email. We're always happy to discuss this. And the work continues. Keep on at the different levels, working with the EOSC Association and the EOSC Steering Board.
Okay, then I think this is where we'll wrap up. So thanks everyone for joining. This was day 2. We'll be back tomorrow for day 3, the last day of the EOSC Future Open Days, where we'll have 2 more sessions. We'll have one on the EOSC Future working groups, and then one on the EOSC Future Knowledge Hub. And I see that Elaria has put her hand up. Oh, it's an old hand. Okay, then that's where we'll leave it. So I'm hoping to see you back tomorrow. If not, then I'm hoping to see you at one of our other events. Thanks everyone for joining, and see you soon.
Thanks, Katrine. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.